Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nargis Zahra with another episode of program Old Theatre with New Players. And today I have with me a guest who was so very busy. He is our county executive, Mr. Marc Elrich. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us for today. And I really appreciate being executive of the most populous county of Maryland, you spared this time for us. But there are few questions that people are so eager to know about, and I couldn't find any other more relevant personality in county to approach and ask these questions. So honored to have you on board.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. So first of all, there is a lot of talk in other states about the way our county, not only our state, but our county, Montgomery County, has approached this pandemic in a successful way. So what are your views on it?
It's hard to use the word success. I feel like we've managed it better than other people have in many cases. But, we've had 1,000 deaths in Montgomery County. So I feel more like we've done a decent job of managing it, but we still haven't beat it yet. And when we beat it, which is a great collective effort, then I can think about success. But I feel like the things that made it different. We've always focused first and foremost on public health. To be blunt, businesses can be replaced. Money can be replaced. Yeah. Human lives can't be replaced.
Exactly.
If you lose somebody, whether it's a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, a grandfather, a good friend, when they're gone, they're gone. And what it takes from all of us it's a lot. It's a big load to bear. And in the early stages, when I saw what was going on in the rest of the country and the rest of the world and the soaring number of cases and, people hauling bodies out of buildings because they couldn't get the thing under control. I was determined that we were going to do everything we could do to protect people. And so from the very beginning, we were very careful about what we opened. So we always, lagged the governor. We didn't open everything he opened. We stayed more restrictive than he would have allowed. Even recently, we've been more restrictive. And I think being more restrictive is what made a difference in Montgomery County. We know that, the virus is passed from person to person. So you and me and your audience, we're all vectors for the disease. We're the ones that carry it forward. And in the case of a virus, which is different than a bacterial infection, the bacteria can linger for a long time. The virus either finds a host or it dies. It either, does what it's going to do in a patient, and then it's got to find another place, another thing to grow in, or it dies. And so we wanted to make sure that the virus had as few places to go as possible. We understood that until we had a vaccine, until we had treatments, that human behavior completely would determine how fast and how far the virus spread. And so we thought to the extent we could limit person-to-person contact, we'd have a better chance of limiting the spread of the virus. So it was masks, it was physical separation, it was limits on the number of people in the store, not having people go back to work. In the county, we did massive amounts of teleworking. So we did everything we could do to keep people from having normal interactions with each other, to make sure there was as much distance and space as we could. So that's sort of what we did. We focused on the health side of this. And we always listened to the doctors. I mean, I have a health official, Travis Gales. Dr. Gales has been, an amazing person in all of this. And, he works with the state. So we knew what the health officials were thinking at the state, even if the politicians didn't agree with them. And if I had to choose between a political decision and a health decision, I'm making a health decision. So I knew kind of what the chatter was and what the information was. And I've tried to be consistent with what my health officer would want us to do. So we've worked very closely together.
Perfect. So that's such I would say an insightful, humble, and realistic response that I could get from an executive. And so I have heard that the way you work with your team is that when you go to a meeting for an idea, you just don't float an idea and say, "Okay, go and do it." You are the one who say, "Okay, I'm thinking like this. Let's do some research on it, and let's see what can be done." Do you think this approach was, it came handy to your decision making because no state, I think, no country in the world was ready for the kind of threat this pandemic, posed to our people right on streets. So, do you
Right.
think this way of thinking was handy to your decision making?
I, th- I think it was very handy because, first place, I'm not a doctor. So I could have opinions. I could read the popular media and form opinions, but there are people who know more than I do. And I spent a lot of time though reading the research, the medical research. And I'll be blunt. If the moment someone started, and there are doctors who did this, the moment someone starts their conversation about personal freedoms and then starts talking about health, you know that they're not putting health first, that they've got an ideological agenda to which they try to fit the science and the medicine. And so I was interested in listening to people who talked about human health and what the impact was going to be and what we could do. So I had my own filter. But after that, I relied on my health officer, my emergency director, the people in health and human services, and frankly, even folks in the community. When we had trouble reaching out, we knew we weren't getting deep enough into some of the minority communities. We actually empowered some of these communities to have greater control, for example, over our testing and over our community outreach, over our food distribution, because rather than just sticking with what we were used to doing, I thought it was important that we actually look at doing things differently if it would have a better effect. So I kind of recognize my limits. I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. And I think it's important for a person to be able to acknowledge what they don't know and then talk with other people and listen. You still have to make up your own mind. These still have to be my decisions, but they ought to be informed decisions. And I've tried to make informed decisions.
So this is what I just have learned. Like, one knows what one knows, and one doesn't know what one doesn't know. We should accept that there are so many avenues of knowledge, and everyone has different set of knowledge than ours. So that takes me to my next question, and that is like, we are hearing about, and we are like looking forward to, and we are like, it's a kind of an anticipation for the people of Maryland and especially Montgomery County, that there are talks about 270 biotech and health research corridor. So it's going to be a good news, because I think to avoid any future unbecoming incidents just like this pandemic, any state, any county should be ready for it. So would you just like to dilate upon it a bit for our viewers, please?
Yeah, so the 270 corridor refers to a stretch between Upper Montgomery County and Bethesda along 270, where there is a high concentration of biotech companies in Maryland. We are probably the number 3 or 4 biotech center in the country, if not the world, and we're probably number 1 in vaccines. We have this enormous confluence of companies doing fundamental research. And we've got NIST on one side of it. You've got NIH down in Bethesda. You've got the Food and Drug Administration in Montgomery County. So not only do you have a lot of science, but you've got a lot of government research, and there's been an awful lot of government research. And we're able to bring all those things together here in the county. So our companies have played a big role. 2 of them received major amounts of money for vaccine development. Others have gotten money for therapeutics, very much on the cutting edge, and they're working on this. The company Novavax, will have a vaccine coming out, their work on this was informed by their work on other forms of coronavirus, not this strain, but other strains. And so they were already familiar with some of the genetics of the virus. So we're in an information-rich area. We've got lots of research going on. It is, when you have concentrations of people, you always have people able to talk with each other. So I think, we're kind of an ideal place for the research to be done. And, to me, it's, aside from the research side of this and the public health side, it is really important to the economy of Montgomery County. It has enormous potential for the county, and we want to make sure that we actually build on that. This county has got assets that we've not always used very well in the outside world, and we really need to build that, because I think we could be, the center of vaccines and the center of life science research, and we're going to try to build it that way. And we were actually working on that before the pandemic struck, which is kind of confirmed what we thought about our strength. We really do have a strength here. I would have preferred it be confirmed another way, but it has shown that this place has enormous potential and is going to be at the cutting edge, as we go forward. As other threats emerge, you can bet that this life sciences corridor is going to be in the forefront of the research that's done on an ongoing basis.
That's perfect. So that means like a lot of opportunities for jobs and employment, and the people like who are going through, an inevitable kind of economic crunch because of this pandemic, because all the economy just went to a halt for once, because as you said, lives were more important. So talking about this corridor, I think like once it's on the recovery path, then people are going to have more opportunities to relate themselves to the development sector, science and research, and I think education also. So a lot would be invested there as well, right?
Well, we know that we need to grow the talent pipeline. So that's one thing we're looking at in the sciences. The other thing is if you've been in these labs and talked to people, you realize how different this is than 30 or 40 years ago, when the research was primarily wet research. You had an idea, you tested a molecule in the laboratory, you saw whether it worked. Yeah. Nowadays, a ton of this research is being done by computer, because they can simulate molecules, they can look at the shape of molecules, they can look at targets on a cell or targets on a virus, they can look at the molecules that they're working with to see what fits, what doesn't fit. The level at which computers are being integrated into life sciences is rather remarkable. When I was a kid taking biology class in high school, nobody ever said, and then we'll use the computer to do this. Yeah. And nowadays, I had a conversation with a woman who was working for a company that actually, this is right after SARS hit, but not SARS, right after we got hit with COVID. And she was in a meeting and she was tired. She said she was tired. And I said, this is hard work. So, I was working all night in my lab. I said, you go to your lab at night? And she said, I was in my gray lab. And I was like, what's a gray lab? And she said, I was working on my computer. So she was doing fundamental research on COVID from her computer.
Yeah.
And that speeds things up. It gives us enormously more power. You could never have created a vaccine and the speed we made a vaccine if we had the tools we had 20 and 30 years ago. And so this is kind of testimony to what these tools could help us do, just imagine if this knowledge and the use of these tools was expanded to medicine in general, as invariably it's going to be done. We have an amazing power, I believe anyway, to really alter the trajectory of life for people. And I'm looking forward to the advances that are going to be made here.
That's perfect. And that's like it naturally leads to my other point that I wanted to ask you so much, because vaccine is out there and some people are getting shots, but there is an obvious debate. And in community, what I have heard from people is a kind of skepticism that, earlier the vaccines were not coming out in the market so soon. So how come there is not enough supportive data or something for this vaccine? So as you said that now there is computerization of the way they work. So it's kind of a fast paced process. So um, I would like you to speak a bit more with the people about safety of having the vaccine to fight against this pandemic, because everyone wants so bad to
Right.
get back to the normal life.
Um, well, we won't get back to normal until we're vaccinated and until we get, and frankly, we need treatments too.
Yeah.
I mean, the vaccine would have been a lot less critical if I could have given you a pill and say, take these for the next 5 days and, keep yourself rested and drink chicken soup
Yeah.
and things would be fine. But we didn't have either a treatment or a vaccine. I feel pretty good about these vaccines. I know that they've been developed relatively quickly, but for example, the one company that I was thinking of that's coming out with the vaccine, they've already had experience with vaccines for 2 other versions of this kind of virus. So they're not coming at this new. They're coming at this as we've seen this before in a different version. We know a little bit about this molecule, and we know what the vulnerabilities of the virus are, and we have ideas about how to attack those vulnerabilities. They wouldn't have known that, again, 20 years ago. And they wouldn't have known genetically, what the structures were and, how the virus was assembled and all the things that they know now. So I think, that really helps a lot. And I think just in general, being able to tailor things, not just hope that it works in a laboratory dish, but to have a better idea of what's going to work or not going to work. This is again is where the ability to look at computerization and understand more clearly what it is you're dealing with. I mean, I don't know any other way to tell it to people than that with the advances that are made, both in, microscopy and analysis of DNA and all those things that we didn't know a whole lot about before, that we're able to understand things a lot quicker. And we're able to identify things that look familiar, things that from past experiences tell you that you ought to be, this may be a key thing you need to look at. So you can target things. And then, they're working now with mRNAs. They're looking at things that genetically can actually modify a virus. We've had some practice in modifying cells in the past. And it's a new field, but it's not like it hadn't been done before. So they're able to draw out a lot of things that weren't available before. They did have to do human trials. They had to go through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Everybody's who's been approved has been through phase 3. I guess, you take comfort by the number of tests you've done, that you don't have fatalities, you don't have major illnesses or major things happening to people. And that gives you, I guess, gives them a higher level of comfort that they can put this out there and that there are side effects. I mean, but none of the side effects that I've read about, seem like they're, life-threatening, at least for what we know today. People haven't died because of the vaccine. People haven't been, severely injured because of the vaccine. So there's discomfort, but there's effectiveness. And so if I had to be a little bit uncomfortable, on the other hand, then if I wind up with a vaccine that's 95% effective, that's going to be a good thing. So I feel pretty good personally about where this is going. I will, when my turn comes, I will get a vaccine. I am waiting my turn. I'm not going to jump to the front of the line and get a vaccine in front of other people, because until all the healthcare workers are vaccinated, until all of the people who put their lives at risk every day, I'm not going to jump and say I want to be vaccinated. My turn will come up, and I'm 70 years old plus, so my turn will be, it's not going to be next week, and it's probably not going to be next month, but probably in the first few months they'll get to me. I've been safe for 9 months now. I know what I need to do to keep from getting infected pretty well. It makes life less interesting because you don't see people, you don't socialize. On the other hand, I'm still around, and people I know who are doing this are still around and healthy. So I know what to do to get me through it until the vaccine comes. And I would encourage people to look at the results and realize, we're not seeing problems that would indicate this is not a good thing to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's like it kind of has reasserted my belief in the vaccines because, as you said, no one has ever died of a vaccine. It's eventually the safer way to avoid disease. And there is very oriental kind of proverb which goes on that if you have to choose between fever and death, what would you choose? So the natural answer is fever. So if there is a bit of uneasiness after having, so one could go for it just to. But
Look, I
what
completely
makes me
understand
thank
that.
you. So what's make me
You got frozen.
now? Pardon my like that you are such an avid. So I think people would think they are in safer hands now.
Thank you. I hope people feel safer, but I hope that they don't get lazy, that everybody stays patient, because you're going to have to wait for your vaccine. After you get vaccinated, you're going to have to wait till you get both vaccines, both shots, because getting one shot doesn't give you full immunity. So you're not fully immune or mostly immune, 90% of the way there,
Yeah.
until you get the second shot. And until we know more about, reinfection or transmissiveness, people are just going to have to wait. But, if all I've got to do is wear a mask and maintain a little bit of
Yeah.
distance between myself and other people, and if I know that the vaccine is going to prevent this in most cases, and I can deal with the mask and everything else until most people get vaccinated, it's a small imposition. You hear people talking about their freedoms and all this other nonsense. I didn't lose any freedom when I put my mask on. Talk to people who've really lost freedom. When you can't think what you want, when you can't speak out, when you can't write what you want, that's when you lose freedom. When you have to put a mask over your mouth where you can still be heard and you can still write and you can still think, you haven't lost any freedoms. You're just being careful.
I totally agree to that, and I can relate to that because yes, it was a kind of I would say different thing, a strange thing to carry something on your face all the time. But yes, it's nothing related to what people really go through or suffer in span of their lives sometimes. But if it is for the sake of life and or a longer span of time for your life, I think it's worth it. It's really worth it. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I'm just looking at the clock, and it was not only an honor, it was, I think, it was a source of satisfaction to talk to you, having firsthand insight of the policy. And thank you so much. Hope we would connect back to you soon. And best of luck for all your ventures to take care of the county.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you again. Feel free to drop by anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.